Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request from Chad. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting, if you want to request any type of videos, reviews, re-reviews, topics, tier list rankings, commentaries, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it and I'll get to it as soon as I can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I really do appreciate it. But this is for Muscles and Mayhem, the unauthorized look at American Gladiators, and this is part one because I think he wanted me to do the whole thing, but there's multiple episodes and some are like 37 minutes long, or not all, but some are a bit longer than that. It's a lot to do in one sitting, one take, so fair just do one at a time. So this part will be part one. But I will say, fascinating so far. Very, very intriguing. Even if you're not into American Gladiators, this is a very unique look. Because I knew about American Gladiators. I knew about it back in the day. I remember, it must have been like, I don't know if it was reruns or I don't know how. I remember seeing bits and pieces. I remember the theme song. And I think the show lasted from 1989 to like 1996. And I will say what this made me do, and I know this is only part one, but it made me want to go back and watch them. Like find them and watch those episodes from like season one onwards. And I gotta say, so far they got a lot of info, a lot of people that were involved. And they set the idea from the very beginning that this is a show that as it went on, there were groupies, there was sex, there was drugs, there was bigger and even bigger egos. And they got some of the people who were the original American Gladiators. They got the guy who was Gemini. And what this starts with is how the idea came about and the shooting of the original pilot. That was very rough, really, really rough, and did not work the best and looked as an embarrassing failure, but yet somehow through bits and pieces they were able to get a chance to do the show. It does end in a way that leaves you wanting more. Nice bit of cliffhanger. Get you intrigued to see the next part. And what I also liked about it is from time to time they have this animation that reminds me of, how do I put it? I wouldn't say an old school animated cartoon, but it was cool that there's certain sections where they're talking about stuff and they show it in an animated fashion. I'm not sure how to word it, but even the way it begins with the song, "I've got the power." It did kind of hectic. That I remember first hearing that song in the Jeff Speakman film, The Perfect Weapon. So I got a kick out hearing that song, and it just fit with the kind of show American Gladiators was. It fits with this first part of this documentary. And there's other songs used, like "You've Got Another Thing Coming." But yeah, the original American Gladiators were Gemini, Zap, Laser, Blaze, Nitro, Ice. Well, maybe those weren't the original. I think this is more like some of the people that we're going to be talking throughout the documentary, who's going to be interviewed. Because not all of these were the original, but yeah, Gemini, he was definitely the OG. Some others will come later, but yeah, those are the ones we get to talk to. So I don't know if some of these guys who were part of it, if they've passed away, or they just said no, I'm not interested, or they only wanted a certain number. Maybe we'll know as the documentary goes on. But it tells about how Gemini, he was the OG guy, he was out of football, and there was this advertisement that said, hey, these guys are wanted. We want people who are athletes, we want people who are fit for this new show. You wouldn't really call it a reality show at the time. Can't quite call it a game show, but apparently this guy named Johnny Ferraro, who Gemini told about, first met this guy. He was wearing an Elvis costume, because I guess he was at times an Elvis impersonator. So Gemini talks about how he's seen this guy in an Elvis gear, chatting him up and talking about this idea, which was to be kind of like Bloodsport. I guess that's the way they worded it, kind of like Bloodsport. I guess just not as extreme as that, but I guess that's the general idea. And they got a few people that worked on behind the scenes. Like, I did not realize the pilot stunt coordinator, because we got to create a pilot to try to sell the show, was Bran Richmond. Now, I know him as an actor. He was in The Taking of Beverly Hills. He was one of the head bad guys going after Tin Wall. Come on, football player. Shooting machine gun and stuff, trying to get Tin Wall and Matt Frewer. He's done a lot of stuff. People would probably remember him the most from Batman Returns. If you know the scene where the clown that has Michelle Pfeiffer and Batman does this, and it goes past the guy goes, "You missed." And he does this and knocks the guy out. The guy who just knocked out is Bran Richmond. But he's done a lot of other stuff. So it was cool to see him in this. That was a nice surprise, and he was very informative. And they talk about how the trials were at Balboa Park. I did not love that certain sections are animated, so it gave a bit of a fun, unique flavor to the documentary. They actually interview the original lady who was Zap in the pilot, and they talk about how they had these old outfits that looked silly looking, and just how the games were thought of for the pilot, and because they weren't 100% sure how to accomplish this stuff, it was a bit of a clusterfuck. Like, there's this thing called Velcro Joust that the gladiators go against the contestants. The idea is to push them and they get hooked on the wall by Velcro, but as they kept doing it, it would not stick. They would not stick on the damn thing. So it's like, oh well, it's because of this, and this, and they won't stick to the fucking wall. Or this bit with a trampoline where the gladiators jumping on a trampoline and they're supposed to grab this hook thing and pull it down, while the other contestant are just grabbing stuff, and they have to grab enough stuff. But if the gladiator pulls the thing, then the contestant goes up to get them away. But the thing is that when the gladiator does that, the contestant's going all over the place and will keep slamming into the wall where this trampoline stuff is at. So the contestant, you see, the poor lady keeps getting slammed. Her knees and stuff keep getting slammed. She definitely has some bruises on that. About how they overshot the pilot, as in it took too much time, and it was just a complete clusterfuck. And that was interesting to see the old footage. Like, they still have the old footage of showing this pilot. Now, I didn't look to see if the pilot's available to watch, like, if it was leaked. You never know. They said, well, we can't use this, but we'll cut it enough that we can to at least try to sell it to some investors. And they tell how they went to, I forget where they went to, but it's a place where all these people go to sell different shows and get noticed. And another thing I did very fascinating stuff. Like there was another show that I had never heard of before called Rock and Roller Games that were competing, and everyone assumed that that show was going to be the big show. And roller derby is back, and so like all these people are going. And it's just funny when you look at it where, again, does anyone remember what the fuck Rock and Roller Games? I never heard of it before. I guarantee I'm not the only one that's never heard of that damn thing before. But I'm sure a lot of us have heard about American Gladiators, so I thought that was a bit interesting. So they talked about how they're going to do like a bit more of a proper first episode. Now they're being kind of picked up and we'll give you a chance. And most of the gladiators were fired except Lace and Gemini. Because I guess they wanted people with more unique looks or maybe a bit more, I wouldn't say maybe bodybuilders, but just people that are just, I guess, a bit more muscled, a bit more just unique of a look. It was cool. They have people like Nitro. He talked about how he got into an audition and he's supposed to go up against this guy, and he picked him up and slammed him down on the concrete. The guy was unconscious, and he said, "Oh damn, I'm getting fired." And the guy came up and said, "You're hired." So there was the original, what would become the original 6 gladiators. There was Gemini, there was Lace, there was Sunny, there was Zap, mentioned Nitro. So yeah, Lace, Sunny, Zap, Nitro, Gemini, and then you had Malibu, who is this guy who has big blonde hair. I think he says the line, because they show the footage, "Twisted steel and sex appeal." I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of talk about that guy later on. And I don't know what's in the future. I did not look anything up just to be a bit more surprised if Chad does eventually request other parts. I have a feeling Malibu guy is no longer with us and he's no longer alive. If I'm wrong, that's cool, but I don't just have that feeling. And then by the end of the first episode, they go into the first day. The first day of actually shooting the proper show. And apparently a lot of people got hurt. And then this clutter that, the higher-ups are pissed off about that. And, oh man, there's no way this is going to go through. It's going to be too dangerous. It's too unsafe. There's no way we're going to be able to continue. And that's a nice hook to end it. Because obviously we know, but how did they get out of that? That's the interesting part. Now, I wish they would have gone into what those injuries were. Like, of that first day or so, what were the specific injuries? Did this person get broken ribs? Or did this person sprain their ankle? Did this person get knocked out? I wish we could have heard the details. Just I think that really would have showcased to the viewer, man, all those specific injuries in just this first day, first proper show. I think that could have sold even more to the viewer as all that had happened. So I wish they would have gone that route. But yeah, other than that, I really did not have much of an issue. It was very interesting to see how things started, to see how things were going, I had seen the old, rough quality pilot that they shot. It was cool to have people like Bran Richmond interviewed. It was cool to have some of the older gladiators themselves interviewed. I like the music that he used to really give that kind of 80s to 90s flavor, which makes sense because that's the era this was in. And then a lot of interesting information, edited well enough so it went at a good pace. It wasn't just talking heads. I mean, there's talking heads, but there's a lot of other stuff interspersed in there. Like I said, I think the idea of having at times animated sections as people are retelling the stories, which again, even though it's crisp animation, it for some reason remind me of cartoons back in the day. I don't know quite how to say it, but it was fun. Like, this was very fun to watch so far. So hopefully there'll be more in the future, and we'll go from there. Like I say, it did make me want to go watch American Gladiator episodes. I will say that. And I can only imagine it's going to get a lot more interesting as it goes on. So, again, I want to say there's 5 parts. Let me double check. Yeah, there's... I want to double check. Yeah, there's 5 parts. Yeah, there's 5 parts to it. Like, episode 2 is 47 minutes long. Episode 3 is 46 minutes long. 46 minutes long. 36 minutes long. So... Plus, I thought it'd just be easier to talk and digest. Instead of, yeah, if I watched all, that'd be like 3 hours, which is a lot to take in. But yeah, very cool so far. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. Thanks once again to Chad, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.